as Goldilocks will surely tell you, there's a fine line between just right and a little too much. Whether it's porridge consistency, bed comfort, or the visibility of soul-devouring demons from the underworld ready to take your eyes out. There's balance to these things, you know? Horror films for years have been told to follow the golden rule of less is more. But instead of listening, we keep being given the full technicolor glory of movie monsters with little regard for how scary they actually are. Whether it's from cheap CGI or bad creature design, characteristic flaws or over-explanation, film has a habit of sucking our imaginations dry when it comes to offering up the scares. What's worse, hearing about a half-man, half-arthropod that will tear you in half, or seeing Dwayne Johnson stuck on the top of a CGI scorpion? I rest my case. With that in mind, I'm Ash from What Culture, and these are 8 horror films ruined by showing too much. 8. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark sees Guillermo del Toro taking a writer-producer credit, and features a young girl who's moved in with her father and believes she's unleashed creatures from a sealed pit in the basement. Whilst it's definitely a big old barrel of horror tropes, the original 1973 movie held promise, and the 2010 remake had the same, at least until the creatures make themselves known. Tiny, monkey, rat chihuahua monsters from underneath the house really don't deliver the horror that filmmakers thought they would, evidently, and turn a creepy premise into a CGI nightmare that's scary for all the wrong reasons. There's really nothing frightening about an annoying dog you can sort out with one swift kick. That's how I spend my weekends anyway. 7. The Village. Now, M. Night Shyamalan gets a hard rap. The Village, before its last-minute breakneck turn into what some would consider a certified mess, works perfectly well as a horror movie. It's well-paced with an original concept, and its creatures are hooded, spined monsters that look the part as much as they acted. If the film remained confined to the little woodland retreat, there's something to be made of a solid horror flick, but instead, we segue into something else entirely. The Village isn't necessarily ruined by its over-explanatory twist, but it is transformed. And with advertising marketing the film as a straight horror thriller, for it to turn into some drama about an Amish community in the woods makes an entirely different film than expected. We'd have been happy with just the first 20 minutes as the core concept, really. 6. Mama. Mama's narrative starts with 2 young girls that are found in the forest and brought back to civilization by their uncle and his partner, who've been looking for them ever since their disappearance 5 years ago. Unfortunately, it seems they've made another friend in the meantime, and a particularly attached maternal spirit will do all she can to take her adopted children back. The premise is a solid one that builds in tension with each suggestion that not everything is right with the little girls. Mama is a genuinely terrifying experience with a great opening, but then spirals into disarray as soon as we see the vengeful ghost floating about in full view. Envisioned with a wonky body and even wonkier CGI, Mama loses all its careful creepiness by letting her linger on screen for far too long. The whole "let's turn into moths" ending that sees the ghost get angsty with everyone on the edge of a cliff really just hammers a nail in the coffin for this one. 5. Annabelle Creation. Bringing about a mixture of film techniques so you're never sure where the next scare is coming from, whether it be a classic jump scare or some freaky body morphing horror, Creation completely blows its load with one scene that steps a little too far into the cold light of day. Trapped in an old barn, the demon after fresh children's souls is shown in its full glory as he shifts around the room, revealing a prosthetic mess painted jet black that functions better as a Halloween outfit than it does something truly horrifying. Whilst we've previously seen a creeping presence that takes over its hosts and skulks in the shadows, we instead get the full-blown gimp costume that then defiles any mysterious presence with actual effect. The film is still an enjoyable watch and one with an unpredictability that is especially exciting, but loses its edge with one misplaced light bulb. 4. Sinister. Another Hollywood-manufactured hit, Sinister tells the story of true crime writer Ellison getting as close as possible to his source material for a new book, discovering a cache of snuff films disguised as home movies sitting in the loft of his recently purchased house. Deliciously designed sound effects and a creepy soundtrack serve to make the film up there with some of the scariest contemporary horror movies around, right up until we're faced with the entity responsible for the murderous family videotapes. And then the whole thing unravels quite spectacularly. Turns out, the whole thing was orchestrated by a weird-looking man dressed like the Crow, watching from the sidelines as he gets children to do his bidding. With a bit more hairspray and some styling, he'd be a full-blown emo hanging around the fountains uptown, so there's really no more threat than going up Wolverhampton on a Saturday afternoon. Just take some Hot Topic vouchers and you'll be distracted for long enough. 3. It. The 1990 miniseries of It is a world away from the most recent cinematic endeavour, featuring the real deal 80s setting instead of the hazy nostalgia filter stuck over just about everything recently. This version also had the incomparable Tim Curry as Pennywise the Dancing Clown, delivering his particular brand of intense character work that functioned incredibly well for the film. It's just a shame about the rest of it. Whilst the laughable acting is one thing, the themes of the film work well until the last showdown with Pennywise's true form. Where the creepiness of his clown appearance was tough to match, this spindle-legged Spider-Man just kind of waddles over, flashes his shiny belly, and then waddles back off again. There isn't as much of a terrifying threat as there has been for the rest of the movie. Instead of Tim Curry's insatiable hunger for human flesh, we just get an angry crab monster. It's a faithful rendition, but one that is so off the wall, it stops the fear the film built up in its tracks. 2. The Ritual. Maybe a little too Blair Witch Project in its execution, The Ritual soon tries to rectify this with an original movie monster. Something huge, deadly, and supernatural lurking in the forest that pins its victims to the branches in particularly gory fashion. You'd think finding animals sacrificed in such a way at the start of the film would be enough to put 4 friends off wandering in the woods. But boys will be boys, and they plough on through in an attempt to get back in the quickest time possible. It's not until the closing scenes of the film that we see, well, it's something. A weird amalgamation of a tiny pea head put into the body of an elk, with human-sized arms protruding like tiny mandibles out of its face. Whilst it is great to see an original movie monster, there's no denying that it's a little farcical. The film is transported from spooky woodland escape to just gawping at a ridiculous-looking beastie. 1. Insidious. Probably the king of absolutely shitting all over its careful tension building and intricately designed scares with about 10 seconds of footage. Insidious is the film that everyone wishes was that bit more self-aware. Or at least I do, and I'm happy to be the voice of a generation. You're welcome. Starting off in perfectly terrifying fashion by seeding different ghostly apparitions throughout the opening, often when you least expect it, Insidious is a masterclass in good old jump scares, with some great visual moments to boot. It isn't until Patrick Wilson hops over to the ghost dimension that things get bad. Very bad. Let's just be honest, when your big bad reveal turns out to be Darth Maul giving himself a manicure in a room full of jiggly puppets to the soundtrack of a warbling Tiny Tim, you know you've probably had a bit too much to drink and should call it a day.
Hello there, I am the second best Ewan to be involved with Star Wars, and this is Whattoculture, your one-stop shop.
Ewan,
yeah, what?
We're not calling it that.
What?
Changed it.
What we change it to?
What culture Star Wars? Just SEO, isn't it? So.
I suppose you are right. Well, hello there again, and welcome to What Culture Star Wars, a brand new channel dedicated to exploring the galaxy far, far away in the classic What Culture style. We got lists, we got news, we got editorials, we've got ups and downs, and just like the big yellow text said earlier, we'll be covering everything to do with Star Wars, past, present, and future. It doesn't matter whether you're a prequels kind of person, an original trilogy purist, or if you just really love the sequels. If you love Star Wars, this will be a safe, positive space to come and relax, chug some blue milk, and maybe even have a death stick or two, and yeah, just have a good time. We'll be kicking things off with weekly reviews of the upcoming season of The Mandalorian and have already got a selection of Star Wars themed playlists for you to enjoy based on content that's already online at What Culture Gaming and What Culture to keep you entertained in the meantime while we transform this place from a Death Star to Return of the Jedi looking half thing into something more ominous and Starkiller looking, like the base, like Ilum with the big gun out, we don't have a gun. In the meantime, it would be very droopy McCool of you if you could subscribe to the channel and follow us on social media so you don't miss any of our uploads going forward. That's all for now though. I've been Ewan, and until next time, may the Force be with you. Bye!